This is Meet the Author. I'm your host, Tigner Rand, and Meet the Author is part of Rolling Out's book club series where I talk with authors about their new books, projects, and of course, what inspires them to write. Joining me today is an award-winning writer and author, Sufiya Abdur-Rahman. So we're gonna start over. And I've done so well all day until I actually ask you.
You had it. You were almost there. Abdur-Rahman.
Abdur-Rahman. God, why have all of a sudden I just got Abdur-Rahman? Rahman. Abdur-Rahman. Okay. Okay, we start again.
All right.
This is Meet the Author. I'm your host, Tigner Rand. Meet the Author is part of Rolling Out's book club series, where I speak with authors about their new books, and of course, projects that inspire them to write. Joining me today is award-winning writer and author, Sufiya Abdur-Rahman. Known for her investigative writing style, Sufiya also poses a question about family, identity, race, and religion, and how they all intersect. Her award-winning you got me nervous today.
Just breathe. It's okay. It's not me. I didn't do anything.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I've never ever made a mistake, but it's all good.
Should I mute my video or something?
No, you're good. I got you where I see you, but I can't see you. So it's not even that you're looking at me. It's in my head right now. So I just have to woosah and clear my mind. That's all.
All right, you do that.
All right. This is Meet the Author. I'm your host, Tigner Rand. Meet the Author is part of Rolling Out's book club series where I'll speak with authors about their new books, projects, and of course, what inspires them to write. Joining me today is award-winning writer and author, Sufiya Abdur-Rahman. Known for her investigative style of writing, Sufiya also proposes a question about family, identity, race, and religion, and how they all intersect. Some of her award-winning essays and articles have appeared in publications such as The Catapult, The Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, and NPR. Today, I have the pleasure to talk with Sufiya about her latest project, Heir to the Crescent Moon. This is a book where she is searching for answers in regards to Islam and faith. She longs to comprehend her father's complicated relationship with Islam, and which also raises questions. So today we're going to delve in a little bit to get a better understanding as to why Sufiya wrote The Heir of the Crescent Moon, and to explore other things about this beautiful book. Welcome, Sufiya, to Meet the Author. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
That's awesome. Before we get started, I just want everyone, this is the cover of the book, Heir the Crescent Moon, Heir to the Crescent Moon. It's currently available at blackbookstore.com. So if you have not picked up a copy, it's a great time to pick it up. And it's right in time for holiday breaks, be able to stop and read and have something good to read over the holidays. Before we get started, tell people a little bit about yourself. Who is Sufiya, and what are you currently doing now, and what inspired you to write this book?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Sufiya. I am a writer. I started writing as a child. I've always wanted to write for newspapers, magazines. Eventually, I got around to books. This is my first book. I also teach writing. I teach creative writing and journalism at Washington College, which is on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I used to write for Rolling Out, as Tigna just found
Yes.
out.
I was just getting ready to mention that. So go ahead. I'll let you finish that
But yeah,
part.
I mean, I've done quite a bit of different types of writing over the years, and eventually got around to wanting to explore a little bit more about my own background, my faith as a second generation Black Muslim, which brought me to this book project. It started with just the idea of interviewing people about their experience growing up Muslim. And I intentionally, at first at least, had the intention of writing it as more of a journalistic style book. And it morphed into what is now this memoir that explores my own background and my family's background. And yeah, the search for answers, I think, was part of the impetus for me creating this book.
Okay. So with that being said, one of the underlying tones throughout the entire book, you talked about it was really about religion meaning your search for Islam. Mm-hmm. How important is it for family and religion to have religion in the family? Do you think that's how important was it for your family, I should say, or how important should it be in a family, really, when it comes to religion today?
Well, I think in my family, knowing God and understanding God was a big part of growing up. Like whatever relationship we had to any particular religion, the foundation for it was having a relationship with God, knowing that he was the creator of the universe, and that we had a purpose on this planet in our own lives, and it was our job to find what that purpose was. So I think that is something that I'm continuing in my own family, just trying to have myself and my children have a relationship with God and have faith, because it's not a given anymore. I think in our society, right, particularly in the Black community, it used to be such a big thing, going to church every Sunday or going to the masjid on Fridays. But nowadays, people have moved away from that. Our lives are just so busy and so full with all of these things, and often houses of worship have not been so much a part of it. And that's okay if things evolve, but I do think that having a relationship with God is foundational to just being a full person.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that. That's a good question. Good point that you made as far as today, how families, it used to be almost a given that families had some form of relationship with God, whatever the religion may have been. But now today we don't see a lot of that. What do you think, besides a few things that you mentioned, are there other things that probably have disconnected people from God? Lack of faith or doubt or
I think from the institutions of religion, I think that there have been differences between the generations, and I think that part of that does have to do with some of the leadership in these institutions, where things may have gone awry in some regard, and then people kind of soured on certain houses of worship and then just didn't return. And so those kinds of traditions, the not going becomes a tradition, and then that becomes ingrained in a generation of a family. So I think there's a lot of factors that may be involved with it, but whether or not a family as a whole goes to a house of worship, each individual, I think, can forge their own relationship with God. So I do think that that's something that people have to work at, and try to continue and instill in their family.
Yeah, good point. Now, without giving a lot away from the book, because you did allude to both of those things that you mentioned, from especially from the MIB, how things kind of would awry, which kind of got your father to the point of being disenchanted with the whole movement. But yet at the same time, he also continued his quest, like you mentioned, with his faith, with the faith.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, he never soured on the faith. He may have become disillusioned with, again, some of the institutionalization of things and how systems worked. But he still, to this day, is a very faithful person and has a very deep relationship with God. And communicates that to people who are curious about it and will defend Islam up and down, if asked. So yeah, for sure, it's not changed.
I gathered that from the book that your father, once he makes up his mind, that could be a very good debate.
Yes, absolutely. He's a great debater. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that part really. I really saw that you honed in quite a bit on that, especially those times jogging around the lake and you not wanting to jog around the lake, and you knew the three phases of what was going to happen.
Yes, absolutely. Those were good
Uh, let's talk about your book a little bit, if you don't mind. If you could read an excerpt from the books. I don't care whatever grabs you that you think that would be of interest to kind of tease the audience with a little bit.
Oh, okay. Tigna, you're putting me on the spot here. Let's see what I can
You don't
find.
have to be. It don't have to be long. Whatever. Just enough to put us on the grab us and give us a little sample of it.
All right. How long would you like?
We're free. Let the spirit flow, and how you read, I'm good.
All right. I'm going to read a little section from almost the middle. No, actually, it's more like in the beginning, but it's a part after when my father was in college. He decided to leave campus
Mm,
and start searching for his faith. And he started with the Nation of Islam before he went to Sunni Islam.
mm-hmm,
So he went to school at Bethune-Cookman College at that time in Daytona Beach, Florida, and then he left to go to Jacksonville. All right, so I say here, when he felt comfortable, my father ventured out to the Nation of Islam temple he'd driven all the way from Daytona Beach to find. It was a Sunday, and the temple was abuzz with activity, hearkening back to his church-going days. But the extent of the similarity stopped there. Unlike at church, a security guard positioned at the temple entrance searched him, along with everyone else coming in, patting him down for weapons and perhaps wires. Once satisfied that he was clean, the guard directed him inside. Dozens of folding chairs neatly arranged in rows greeted him in the worship hall. Women wearing ankle-length skirts and head coverings that flowed to the middle of their backs sat on one side. Men, mostly in dark suits, white shirts, and slender ties, sat on the other. My father joined the men, instantly impressed by how organized and orderly the service appeared. The minister soon took his place at the podium and delivered his sermon. Long on praise of the strengths of Black people and denigration of the injustices committed by whites, the Nation of Islam message lived up to its promise. Satisfied that he was getting what he came for, my father decided he would return to the temple the following Wednesday. On that second night, a security guard searched him at the entrance, just like before, but this time, without even viewing any identification, the man asked, "Are you Robert Nesbitt?" Hesitating, my father faltered a response. "Yeah," he said, his voice quavering. "How do you know who I am?" "Your father was here looking for you." My father's brief puzzlement was followed by a sudden and intense dread. If his father had come all the way down to Jacksonville, Florida, from Teaneck, New Jersey, he knew his adventures as a college dropout and Nation of Islam hopeful were coming to an abrupt end. He went into the service anyway, and sure enough, in the midst of the preaching, my grandfather showed up. My grandfather wasn't a very tall man. He was rather stout and round, with a midsection that ballooned like the hula hoop on clown pants, but he was nothing to laugh at. His lips could curl from beneath his mustache, and his eyes could burn from behind his glasses. His real power, though, was in his sharp tongue and booming voice. When he decided to raise the volume, his words were like thunder, clapping ferociously and striking fear into entire neighborhoods. And his language could be just as fearsome, filled with profanity and an impropriety he got away with, because who would dare challenge him? It was these qualities that made me particularly shy around my grandfather. I was nothing like him and wanted to avoid calling attention to the fact. My grandfather waited until the service was over and brought my father back to his hotel to tear into him. It started with just a look, or rather, the look. the one of a parent's major disappointment that could make any child crumble into self-loathing. And then the lecture began. Boy, what are you doing? My father wasn't supposed to answer that. He sat with his head bowed, prepared to take the tongue lashing that came in a barrage of unanswerable questions. What the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is on your mind? How the hell could you go and then my grandfather, who'd only had the chance to finish 8th grade, got to the bottom line. Boy, he said, don't you know I put out all kinds of money for you to go to school? And here you are. My father could only sit there while my grandfather made it clear that no son of his was going to quit college to become some Black revolutionary. By the end of his tirade, though, my grandfather began to marvel that he'd even been able to find my father after driving all around Jacksonville with Greg, looking for a turquoise cougar until they spotted it parked outside the Nation of Islam temple. My grandfather noticed the irony in my father's hanging around what used to be his own stomping grounds back when he lived in Jacksonville years earlier. My grandfather's anger gave way and he chuckled. Boy, I used to rip and run these streets myself. I'll stop there.
That was a good part. I remember that. I saw myself in that situation.
Yeah.
So that it really, one thing I did take away from the book, a lot of love. There was though mom and dad divorced, separated, it was still love in the family.
Yeah.
Though mom and dad did not go down the path, especially mom did not go down the path that her mother wanted, especially by going natural.
Yeah.
It still was love in the family. And that's something I think that is oftentimes missing in a lot of families today, be it Black or white. We're so disconnected. We don't show that same genuine, unconditional love. But just through the reading, you can tell that it was there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How many fathers or mothers or parents would drive 1,000 miles?
Right.
I mean,
Can you imagine?
Yeah, 1,000 miles, and you have absolutely no idea where they are, or you know that he's in Jacksonville, but only clue is, okay, I know he's at a mosque, so that means there's probably only one mosque in this city, so we just got to find it.
You got to find him.
That's the kind of stuff that, I don't care how much you may dislike your parents, at the end of the day, it's genuine love.
Yeah, my grandfather would go to all kinds of lengths. He was a pretty intense kind of guy.
It sounded like it. It sounded like how strong was your relationship with your grandfather?
Pretty good. He died when I was 18. So,
okay.
And he lived in Florida while we lived in New York. So we were never, in the same place, but for sure we went down and visited him and he would come up and visit us. So, as close as a grandparent from a distance relationship can be. And he did send a lot of packages. He was very good at shopping and sending us packages all the time.
So did you ever get a chance to taste any of his food?
Oh, yeah.
It sounded like he was a good cook.
Great cook. He was a great cook. Yep. That's a very memorable part of him.
Okay. So how important is family? Because one thing I mentioned the family, but how important is family and how important is it for a father to be in the child's life as well?
Oh boy, family is everything. I feel like it is such a foundation for finding your place in the world. Before you can go out and become an adult and an independent individual, I feel like you need to have a really strong foundation that comes from your family. Okay. It's tough out here, especially for Black people, especially for Black boys. And then if you're Black and Muslim and a boy on top of that, or a woman, that's
another challenge within itself.
That's a lot. And so I do feel like having that foundation and understanding where you came from and understanding who you are can really give you that fuel that you need to keep going once you're faced with all these challenges that are going to be out there facing you in the world. So yeah, it's so important.
That's good. I know that there were times throughout the book where you, especially when your parents divorced, that you almost wanted to not talk with your father. But what would you say was that what drew you back to him? And if,
Yeah.
and also, is there anything you could say to that young brother or sister who may have conflict with their parents? What would be the key thing for them to draw from your experience to, help them to reconnect to a loved one?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was more than not wanting to talk to him. I really didn't. I did not talk to him when he called. I would not come to the phone. It was,
Okay.
I just, for a minute, I just was like, I don't want to see you or speak to you. But as I think I say in the book, I was the only one who was doing that. I had three
Yeah.
siblings who were living with me at that time, and the rest of them were speaking to him, and my mother was speaking to him. And so it became a little bit awkward that I was the only one who was not. And I couldn't keep it up for that long. And I mean, what you'll see in the book is that at that time when I wasn't speaking to him, then his mother, my grandmother, died. And it
Yes.
was a sad
Yeah.
occasion. And so me keeping up my silent treatment during a funeral for his mother would have been really, really cruel. So at that point, I let it go. And I tried to turn that corner to see him as a person who had his own hurts and pains as well,
Hmm.
and was making an effort to reach out to me. It wasn't like he wasn't making an effort. He was making an effort to reach out to me, so I tried to reciprocate.
Understand. Yeah. So did anyone ever say anything to you why you were not talking to dad?
I'm sure they did. Yeah, they thought I was just being really stubborn. But it didn't sway me much.
Right.
I heard it, but I didn't change my mind.
Yeah. I kind of I gathered from the book that you could be stubborn, but also a realist. You try to look at things in a full, look at it on the full perspective of whatever it is. So
Mhm.
it's not just a one side. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I tried to.
I
I
know
think
it's not easy, but but
yeah.
you could tell it was an effort. I mean, it was something that you were trying to do through the words. You could read that and see it.
Right. In the book, for sure. I tried to make that effort. Now, was I always successful? No.
Right.
Did I always do it too in the book? Probably not, because in certain parts I would want the reader to understand where I was coming from.
Hmm.
And that was important for me to express that. But for sure, there are parts in the book where I think, like in that section that I just read, you can see that I'm kind of in the minds of both my father and my grandfather, seeing it from my father's point of view. Like, here's something that I really want to do. I want to find this faith, regardless of whether I'm supposed to be in school or not. And then here's my grandfather saying, I'm paying for you to go to school, so you should be there. And so
Right.
you can see both sides of it. And
Right.
that section that you brought up about my mother and my grandmother, I think you can see both sides of it too, like where my grandmother was coming from. And, on one hand, it's like she's totally right. But then there's my mother's side, and she's totally right too. So
Exactly.
it's just a difference of opinion. And sometimes those differences happen, and people won't agree in the moment, but they'll come to understand what the other person was thinking maybe later. And then that's how
Exactly.
they can reconcile.
Exactly. And keeping in mind, a lot of people don't realize, but during the 60s, if a person had an afro, it was almost as if saying that you were militant.
Right.
Even though when blacks were doing it, it was more of expressing or embracing blackness,
Mm-hmm.
because no one was really walking around with hair natural. Either they were wearing Caesar haircuts or ladies were having the hair,
Correct.
straightened or,
Yeah.
perm.
Mm-hmm.
God forbid you had dreads or,
Oh
or,
no.
oh, that would have been, oh my God,
Right. They would have said, "Where are you from?
where are you
Jamaica?"
from?
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, I remember seeing, very few girls wore braids back then. And now you see braids everywhere. You
Everywhere.
know, what
And
girl would,
that's
yeah,
the thing, Tigner, is that, from my generation, I didn't quite understand that, growing up, that it was a statement. It felt to me like this was just the style of the times. Like, everyone in the 70s had afros. But then when you hear the story, like this was a
Hmm.
change that had to be provoked. People had to make that push to make it
Yes.
become an everyday thing. Then
Yes.
it made more sense. You know, it's like, oh, okay, this was a push that people made, and now it's accepted. And it's not until you make that push that it becomes accepted. So if you don't push, it's not going to be, the norm.
Exactly.
So
And probably the only thing that disturbs me now is that a lot of people who wear hairstyles they don't really understand. They wear it just because it's the style or it's cool or something looks nice. But do you really understand the meaning behind what
mm,
dreads are or what the afro meant?
yeah.
You know, either it becomes more of a fashion statement versus what the cause was behind the style. It wasn't just for fashion. It was a purpose and a meaning behind it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, but things change too, though.
Yeah.
People, it might mean something different now to have an afro today as it did back then.
Correct.
Although
Correct.
afro probably is the one thing that's kind of meaning the same thing, but for sure, locks is different now than it was
Yes.
back
Yes.
then. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a Rastafarian anymore.
Exactly.
It means more that, different things for different people. And I
Hmm.
think that's okay for styles to evolve and change. But I think I understand where you're coming from, that it's good to know where it came from. Like, what was the origin of this thing?
Right. And that's probably the biggest thing. Even I talk to my children about music. Daughter had on a shirt the other day. I said, "Do you know who that is that you're wearing?"
Was it Tupac?
No, she actually had on Pink Floyd. I said, "Do you know who that is?"
Oh, really?
She's like, "No,
That's
I just
funny.
got it." I said, "I'm curious." I said, "At least know who it is."
Yeah.
Oftentimes I stop young brothers in the street, especially young brothers, and I see them with a T-shirt on. Like, "Do you know who that is you have on?" "No, I just thought it was cool."
Yeah. Yeah.
"Okay, go look him up." I've seen guys with Jimmy Hendrix on and absolutely don't even know who he is. They
Really?
just have a Jimmy Hendrix shirt on just because he's a black guy with an afro. It looks cool. So now go look up. His name is Jimmy Hendrix. Now go look him up and tell, I may not never see you again, but I'm gonna drop this
Mm-hmm,
knowledge. Go learn about who this brother is.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that going back and claiming it, I think is a big part of what I'm trying to do in the book too.
Yep.
Because I do feel like there's so many things that we start and then maybe we let go. And it's ours. So it's like, why not go back and claim it? That's Sankofa. We need to hold on to that. That's us.
Yes.
We own that.
Yes. We don't own it or embrace it enough. We end up losing it and allowing others to take over it.
Yes. And Jimi Hendrix is a perfect example of that for
Yeah,
sure.
we can, and so that's a whole nother conversation. We could talk about that. Just a whole chain of musicians where things have changed, evolved over the years that we've created, but we've lost hold to it. You know,
Mhm.
what's the backstory on the title? How did you come up with the title?
Heir to the Crescent Moon. As you reach the end of the book, you'll see a little bit more explanation of where that comes from. But back in the 70s, the mosque that my parents were a part of had several businesses in Harlem, and the businesses bore the title of Banu Halal. Like there was a Banu Halal restaurant and a Banu Halal tea room. And the Banu Halal were a tribe back
Mhm.
in the early centuries, a Bedouin, a Muslim tribe, and they were the Banu Halal or Bani Halal at that time. And it translated to Sons of the Crescent Moon. And I thought that was a really interesting and cool name. And I felt like, okay, that tradition was passed down. It's an oral tradition now that has been passed down for generations amongst people in the Middle East. Right now, it's kind of dying out. It's only existing in Egypt now. But it spoke so much to me about what happened with this movement of Black Muslims that arose with the death of Malcolm X, and how it has evolved and changed and kind of splintered into all of these different things. So I wanted to use that to define kind of what I was trying to do in telling the story about this legacy that for me, came from my father, and that I was trying to grab onto.
Cool. It's really a cool title, and it actually caught my attention. I definitely knew about the Crescent Moon and the star. So I knew where we were going when I saw the title, but then it was like, okay, the heir of the Crescent Moon, the heir of what? And heir is basically means that you inherited something. So it, after reading the book, it makes sense, how it all ties, how easy was it for you to pick that title, or did you kind of play around with other possible titles for this book?
I really felt like it wasn't a very good title and that someone along the way was going to change it because
Yeah.
I'm just not a good title person. I was never a good headline writer. I know they used to say, write your own headline for these articles you're turning in. And I would just be like, I don't know, leave it blank. I'll wait for someone else to do it. But for some reason it stuck. People liked it. And so it is the title. I don't know. It just came.
It just
I
came.
just try to
Okay.
pick something from the text and that's what came.
And well, you did a great job, because I mean that you made it sound so simple that so many authors tell me they had so many revisions made, or editors came back and chopped it up or changed it. But that's pretty good that you were able to just kind of pull that from your spirit, and then and it stuck.
It stuck, yeah.
And it stuck, yeah. What do you want people to glean from this book?
So many things. But I mean, I really hope that if you pick up the book, and I do hope that you do out there, that you will read it from beginning to end. I don't think that it's the kind of book that you can jump in and jump out of and feel like you
No,
understand the
you
whole
can't.
story.
No, you can't.
Yeah, so I just hope that you can get to the end and then take from it whatever you want. For me, it was a story of discovery. There was so much that I was trying to discover when I was a young person and felt like I didn't get answers to. And then during this process, there was so much that I did discover and was just really glad that I was able to find out. And so the whole thing was a process of discovery. And I think that is important for people who are coming into their own, just being able to search and find answers. And, if they don't find them, to keep looking. So yeah, I think that's it for what I want you to take from it.
Okay. You definitely, this book definitely took you on a journey, and you ultimately end up had the opportunity to interview a lot of people. Did the journey continue?
It's probably a little bit different now. The
Okay.
journey is different now because now the journey is hearing feedback about the book, and
Okay.
that's an interesting process in and of itself. And it may one day lead to another book of some sort. I don't
Something.
know what. I don't know what,
Right.
but yeah, that's a process.
I'm sure. How long did what was the timeline from the concept of writing the idea to coming up with the first draft to coming up to where we are now with the final product? What does that timeline kind of look like?
Well, I went into graduate school with an idea for a book. It was similar, but it's not this book. And that was in 2009. So maybe I started actually working on this around 2010, and probably off and on continued working on it for the next 10 or so years. But I say off and on because I've always worked full time, and I have kids. I have a couple of boys myself, so there's a lot that and I teach, so there's a lot that goes on in my normal everyday days. And fitting in writing is me trying to fit it in. It's not something that I spend all of my time on. So
Right.
it probably took me about 10 years to get from beginning to end. And I found out that I won this contest in, let's see, it was a year ago. So it was, around November 2020. So about, 10 years from start to finish.
Oh, wow. Okay. So did you join any like writers groups or clubs, or were you just kind of just doing this on your own and then you entered this contest, or?
So I got my MFA from Goucher College in Towson, Maryland, where I started working on the book. And
Okay.
over the years, I did do some writers workshops. I went to Vona Voices workshop, which is a workshop for writers of color, twice. I went in 2013 and 2016. And I had a residency one time. Actually, I didn't really work on the book when I was at the residency, so maybe don't count that one. Um, but yeah, and I definitely had some friends, particularly ones that I met at the Vona Voices workshop, help me out, read over different pieces, chapters that I had and help me with drafts and whatnot. And my husband is also a writer, so sometimes when
Okay, cool.
he would read what I produce and give me some feedback as well.
Oh, that's cool. That's good.
Yeah.
I know what I wanted to ask you this question. You purchased a ring. Do you still have a ring?
This one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still wear it. I haven't grown that much since I was a teenager, so it still fits.
Good. Tell a little bit about the story of that ring. It was fascinating how you told the story in the book. You really was trying to find that connection, if I'm saying, kind of paraphrasing, between yourself and Islam, and you saw this ring and you got it. Is that kind of best way to?
Yeah, because I have, this photograph book of Malcolm X that he wears this ring
Yes, that ring,
on his finger. And so I had this when I was young, and I always kind of admired the ring that he had on. And when I see him in pictures, and I was like, oh, this ring looks a lot like that ring, and I like it, and I thought it looked good on my hand, it fit me.
They said it looked good on my hand.
Yeah, the salesperson was like, that's not really supposed to be for girls, like, or women. No, that was not for you. And I'm like, but it's perfect. Like, what are you talking about? So I bought it, even though, against the salesperson's objections. And I've had it ever since, and I wear it every day.
That's cool. So tell me, as far as your journey, do you think that you actually were able to connect with? How deep has your faith been in your journey through Islam as a Muslim? Has it grown any? Do you think you finally got to the path of where you was trying to get to, as you talked about in the book?
I think I understand more. I think that was my primary goal, was to understand more. As we were talking about, in family and knowing where you came from and everything. And I felt like, without understanding that clearly, I had a disconnect within myself. Like, I was trying to understand my faith, but I felt like I couldn't quite get there without understanding, well, where exactly did this come from in my family? And that's personal to me. That's individual to me. It may not matter to anyone else,
Right.
but it definitely mattered to me. And so the journey of understanding that, where it came from, has helped me to reconcile what it means to me to be Muslim. So yeah, for sure. I think this whole process has helped me out a lot.
Good. Kind of a twofold question. Throughout the book, you intertwine bits and pieces of prayer in Arabic. And some I understood, a lot I did not understand. Was that intentional?
Yeah, when you Muslims pray 5 times a day in Arabic. If you're going to be Muslim, you need to learn the prayers in Arabic. And for sure, Americans are naturally uncomfortable with foreign languages.
You think so?
I think that we just
I'm being sarcastic.
I
You're
know,
right.
I know. But we don't want to say it. We don't want to hear it. We don't want to see it. We don't want to read it. We're like, what is all of this? So yes, it was intentional for me to put it in there to try to make it just a little bit more comfortable, or a little bit more normalized, that this is a thing that's part of a culture that is American, because Black Muslims have been in this country for centuries.
Yes.
And so having that be heard, or at least read on the page a little bit more, hopefully can normalize it a little bit more, and not be seen quite as so much of a foreign thing, but part of an American thing. So yeah, I mean, I do hope that people can start to see Islam as just a natural, normal thing that some people are part of, some people are not.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is part of this country and it's part of the fabric of this country. So yeah, it was intentional.
So, okay. So how proficient have you become in Arabic? I know you sought after your father, teach me, and he began to teach you the prayer, and then you got to Howard and you were going to learn. You actually would sign up for Arabic classes.
Yeah.
So how far did that go?
I learned it when I was in college. I learned everything I was
She
supposed to
said, I
learn for
learned it when I was in college.
for
So
my
that
four semesters of Arabic. I took my 4 semesters and I did well in all of them. And today, don't ask me any Arabic.
okay, because you know I was getting ready to ask you. Okay, I overstand. I do understand what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. So, how important is it for Black authors to have Black authors like yourself and to tell your stories in
Wow.
today's world?
Oh man, Tigner, that's the thing. I think that we just don't get heard or seen enough. There are so many amazing, amazing Black authors out there. Now, I think that we are on the cutting edge of literature all the time. We win all the awards because I think we do this thing very well. But I do think that our stories are underappreciated. You know,
Yeah.
our lives, the stories of our lives are underappreciated. When
Yes.
people read or have to read or are told about a story by a Black author that it has Black characters in it, they feel like that's a special thing. You know, like,
Yeah.
oh, is this Black studies? Oh, is this, for Black History Month? Whereas I think it should be every day. It should
Every
be
day.
part
Yeah.
of, part of your normal curriculum, not part of some special course, so, or class in school. People are scared of
Yes,
race.
they are. That's
They're
why we
scared of
see.
race.
That's why we now hear this whole thing about CRT is because
Mhm.
they are scared that you don't want to hear the real story.
Yeah.
You know, tell the true story. It's one thing to tell your side of the story, but there is also another side, and it's not as glamorous as the side that you're telling. You
But
know,
the way I feel about it is that that's your side too. This side that I'm telling you, it's an American story. It's
but you're in
not
denial of it,
specific
though. That's all. You're
to
just in
Black.
denial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
they
know,
they think that it's something that's off to the side, that that doesn't have to be part of the main story, but it is the main story. You can't
it,
tell
it,
the main story without this part.
exactly. You don't exist without us, regardless of how bad the picture is.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be where you are if my ancestors was not plowing your field or building this country
Mm-hmm.
without us. It's just simple as that. So it'll be a different story altogether.
Yes, yes, it would be a different story altogether. That's great.
It can't be no other way.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe your writing style?
Hmm. I think I'm a very visual writer. And I think I find it interesting and kind of odd because I'm not a very visual learner, or a visual teacher. I'm clearly a word person, but
Mm-hmm.
when I write, I do lean on a lot of images. And so I think spend a lot of time describing how things looked, how things, what
Mm-hmm.
it sounded like, what it smelled like. Um, and so that the reader can have a picture in their mind of what this whole thing was. As they're reading it, there should be some images that come up. So I think I'm a very visual writer. I probably am also a little long-winded. My sentences probably go
I
on
don't know.
long.
I don't think so. I think they were just right. To be us being honest, I've read some authors who were long-winded,
Yeah.
but I think yours they were pretty succinct and to the point. I mean, even you were descriptive, which was great.
Mhm.
Like turquoise cougar, I saw it.
Yeah.
It's one thing to say he was driving a cougar. There are a lot of different cougars cars that were out there, but when you say turquoise, it automatically put it in a certain year.
Yep.
I knew exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So that may not be for everyone else, but I'm a visual person. My mind I'm very visual in the mind, so I could see all the things that you painted.
Good.
So now I don't think you were too wordy It was, I think
Okay,
you used just the right amount of words to get the point across, but it was still very visual
great.
to know what you were saying.
Good. Glad that worked out.
Yeah. When it where you are now in your journey, when did you know that God was calling you to, just to really learn more about the Islam faith?
That's a great question. That is a really good question. I would have to, I don't know if I could put a certain age on it because I really don't remember how old I was,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that yes, I do feel like I was called to write about Islam, and I'm not sure exactly how I know that this happened.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember, thinking it like, yes, this is what Allah wants me to do, and so this is what I need to do. Um, it is hard for me to pinpoint the age or time that it
I
happened
understand.
though.
That's fine. So, but you know that that was that calling that you had to do it.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Do you have you written a lot of work that get really trying to bring the message to the forefront, or is that kind of an ongoing process?
Yeah, it's off and on. I do write things that are not about Islam. So
Hmm.
but I do also write other things that are. So it comes up.
Right.
I write a lot of pieces that just delve into different aspects of my personal
Hmm.
experience. So like one thing that I'm working on now, I'm trying to develop a collection of essays that focus on love of Black men. And
Mm.
so that it takes me in different directions because there's a lot to say on that subject matter, within a family, within society, within the media, there's a lot that you can talk about.
Oh
Um,
yes.
and for sure stories about Islam come up in that too, but it's not totally about that.
Understand. Understand. How important is it for you, for a person to have a personal relationship with God or Allah?
Personal relationship, yeah, I think it's important. I think it's I think it's important. I'm not going to dictate for everyone else what they should do,
Right.
but for myself and for my family, I think, yeah, it's something that I would urge people to find their way, whatever that way is, find their way so that they have that at their core.
Right. I understand. One thing I learned that I did not know. Um, I knew of the connection between Christianity and Islam, but I did not know that. Reading the book, you kind of touched on a little bit that Christianity was somewhat of the forefront of Islam, but you didn't go in a lot of detail about that.
Mhm.
I didn't know that.
Mm. Well, I mean, it precedes Islam. Islam
Yeah.
developed in the 600s, and so it was years, centuries after Christianity made its way through. So yeah, some of the prophets, well, who Muslims
Right.
call prophets in Islam, are from the Christian faith. So, mhm.
Correct. Yes, that part I knew. Yeah, they're just not realizing, but how it kind of parallels throughout, from throughout religion. What what would you say is your biggest inspiration since through Islam faith? Anything that comes to mind
Well, do you mean as a writer?
as a writer, or just you, the person, the individual?
Um, so my biggest inspiration to sit down and write something, I
Yeah,
want to make sure I understand the question. Okay.
yeah,
I think if I get a good idea, if I get a good idea of how to put something together, that
hmm,
definitely drives me to sit down and put it down on page because so much has been done already. So much is out there already, and there's just almost no new ideas under the sun. And sometimes I feel like this has already been said. I don't have anything new to add to it, or, I may not do it in a different way. But if I have an idea that I know is different than what's already out there, then yes, that will compel me to go sit down and write it down.
Okay. Was there anything, what was your favorite thing about writing the book? As you wrote it, was there anything that kind of comes to mind that you liked about writing Heir to the Crescent Moon?
That's a great question. Um, I found delving into my personal history
Mm,
pretty interesting. I was so opposed to it at first when I began this book because I began as a
really?
journalist. Yeah, I began as a journalist who did not write about herself and didn't use the first
Okay.
person very much. I had started writing essays by that time, but those were small, short pieces. This was a lot about me, and I was like, "Ooh, this is kind of cringeworthy. I don't want to spend so much time on me." But as the more I did it, the more I found that I actually liked having to go back over my thoughts and my ideas and my actions and kind of just examine those things. So yeah, I and spend time on myself. I think as a mom and as a teacher, you often spend a lot of time on other people. And this was a
Hmm.
way for me to just focus on me for a while. So that was also good.
Okay. Did you learn anything from writing the book?
Lots. Oh, so much, so much, so many things. One thing, one thing that I learned is like really be done before you send your book to people. Like make sure you're done because once you're done, there's no going
There's
back.
no going back. You're right.
Yeah. Yep.
How when you wrote this book and you were trying to engage your father, that did it bring you guys closer together? Because you had to do a lot of talking and researching and listening to him talk.
Um, I don't know. I think it helped me understand him more.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think it definitely helped me understand him more. Like there were so many things that I found out that I had no idea about. So in that sense, yes, it did bring me closer to him and understanding him better. For sure. In that interview process, I learned so much that was just unknown. He was not a kind of person who talked a lot about his past.
Himself, yeah, got
Yeah.
you.
And so,
Anything, any
yeah.
one thing to come to mind that you could share that really stands out?
Let me think about that. Oh, just how many different types of churches he went to as a kid. I didn't know. Like he was part
Oh
of,
yeah,
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 Baptist and Episcopal and Pentecostal, and he was an altar boy and all of these things that I just didn't know about at all. Yeah.
yeah. I do remember that part of the book. There, it's like, wow, yeah, he did a lot. He
Mhm.
between mom or mother, daddy, and uncles and everyone else, you were going to every church that was out there. So yeah, that's enough to kind of keep you confused and like what the heck is going on for,
Right.
for anyone. So have a little fun before we close out. What are some of you? What tell me one hobby, non-work related hobby that you like to do outside of raising children and teaching and being a wife?
Um,
What do
I,
you do for yourself that's kind of take me away?
do I have any hobbies?
Is it
I mean, I'm an avid, oh, okay, here's one. Here's one that I know for sure. I like plays. I go and
okay?
watch plays, theater productions. I just this past weekend, my husband and I finished the August Wilson 10 play cycle. We have
Oh
now
wow,
seen all 10 of his 10 play cycle in live in person. So that is something that yeah, we were trying to
how
do it.
was that? I should have been. That was quite interesting. I know.
Yeah, I mean, August Wilson was just an amazing, amazing author and a
Hmm.
playwright, and each one of his plays is a masterpiece by itself. But then all of them together, it's phenomenal that he was able to do that in his lifetime. And we read the books, of course, we read them in book form, but seeing them is just a whole different
That's a whole nother,
experience.
yeah.
Yeah, and the actors, they just bring so much to the roles, and they're not easy plays, most of them. They're, they're long, and there's a lot to learn and a lot of lines to learn and to rehearse and to practice. But there's so much talent, on stage and in our communities. These are Black actresses and actors, and they just do such a phenomenal job of bringing our experience to the stage. So I can't recommend that enough. Anyone who you have August Wilson play coming to your town, go
Check it
out,
out.
see it. They're great.
Which one? Anyone is your favorite?
I think my two favorites are Piano Lesson and Fences, in terms of the productions of them. Reading them, I would say probably King Hedley II and Seven Guitars. But yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I've seen Fences, and I've seen Fences, the play and the movie, and that's like, he was very deep, thought provoking, and you could live it and see it, through the lens of a Black person.
Yeah.
Right. Favorite guilty pleasure?
Ice cream.
Oh, well, you say that with so much enthusiasm.
Yes.
Which flavor?
Well, this is going to be way too much information. I could really only have one flavor at this point in my life. I'll just say Breyers vanilla, lactose free. That's my thing right there.
I understand.
Yeah.
Favorite food? Do you have any favorite foods?
Can beverages count?
Yeah.
Green tea. I'm a green tea kind of girl.
Plain or with honey or lemon?
Honey. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we've been talking with a phenomenal sister today about a great book. Title of this book, Heir to the Crescent Moon, currently available on blackbookstore.com. Please make sure you pick it up. Sufiya, before we adjourn, please share with everyone your social media handles and email addresses and how they can follow you and get in contact with you.
Okay. I'm on Twitter. On Twitter, I am Mrs. Abolitionist. So you can find me there. I also have a website. It is www.sufiya.net. So that's spelled SUFIYA. And I have a Facebook account as well. That's just my name, Sufiya Abdur-Rahman. And those are pretty much the best ways to reach me. I haven't delved into Instagram yet, so I'm sorry, I don't have any pictures to show you.
I understand. We thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being creative. Continue being creative and allow God to use you to be an inspiration to others with all you do. And I would definitely look forward for more creative work from you in the near future.
Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks, Tigner.
Yes, you've been tuned in with us today with Rolling Out's Meet the Author. Until next time, make it a great day.